Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before getting into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with Kobbie Mainoo, still the talk of the town. All of that noise is not going anywhere. If anything, we've had a report come out early this morning from The Athletic, with some really interesting statements and bits regarding the situation. So let's run through the latest there. So first of all, last night, Solly Talks, who's connected with the club, and I think it's a decent source as well, said that Kobbie Mainoo is expected to stay at Manchester United this summer, despite being open to a move away. The club are not looking to sell him, plus he hasn't asked to leave. Move this late in the window is seen as unlikely. Meetings will follow with his reps. And I think that's important to bear in mind before we go through the rest of the news, because I've got a funny feeling a lot of this is being agent-driven and all the talk regarding Kobbie Mainoo. But then since then, we had a piece come out from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic saying the following. So the 20-year-old United Academy graduate is open to leaving his boyhood club before the transfer window closes on Monday, having discussed as much with teammates. United, meanwhile, have been considering the prospect of selling him all summer, sources say. So Laurie Whitwell on The Athletic reporting that Kobbie Mainoo is open to leaving, which goes in line with what David Ornstein has said, what Fabrizio Romano, like all the other stories over the last couple of days, have all said that Kobbie Mainoo is open to leaving Manchester United, and he's even discussed it with teammates. But then also that United have considered selling him all summer. Now, I can believe that as well, because I don't think we have anyone at the club, barring a few, that are unsellable. We've heard this before. We heard this in January, I think it was last year, from David Ornstein, saying that, there's only, Kobbie Mainoo's not on the unsellable list at the club. And then the report also went on to say that United sources insist they are not actively pushing Mainoo out the door. However, and staff are happy with him, albeit like all players, he has areas to improve. People at Old Trafford expect him to remain at United, a United player beyond next week's deadline, with the caveat that anything can happen in the final days of the transfer window. So again, Laurie Whitwell suggesting that we are not actively pushing Kobbie Mainoo out the door. However, like all players, he's got areas to improve. He needs to work his way into the team. I don't think anyone has a divine right to play minutes at Manchester United, whether you're a youth player or you're a non-youth player. I do think he needs to show it on the pitch. I think he's probably going to start tonight, and then maybe all this noise settles down a little bit, because I do think there's a little bit of agent mischief going on regarding the situation. I do think there's a little bit of media overhype as well, because we've had an unsettled start to the season. They know, and I know, and you know, and I can read your comments and everything behind the scenes, that all the issues and all the anger that was there at the end of last season has just risen to the surface as well, and that midfield is a massive area of concern as well. So I think it's like a perfect storm almost, where, United fans are unhappy with the start of the season because we're still scarred from the end of last season, and we were expecting things to be a little bit different at the start of this season. And then we know the midfield is a problem, and that Bruno's a contentious issue at the moment, although I still think Casemiro's a massive issue for us as well, but that's by the by. And then there's a little bit of media mischief going on as well, because it drives attention and views, and while everyone at United is a little bit worried and nervous and angry and all of this stuff, let's play with their emotions and then put stories out there that Kobbie Mainoo is going to be leaving and stuff. But when it's all on the flip side of that, though, this is going to contradict that. When you're getting David Ornstein and Laurie Whitworth saying it, I do think there's a little bit behind it as well. But then also in the report, it goes on to say, as a key player for the club, Mainoo was hoping for a substantial improvement to his terms, potentially up to 10 times those present wages. He's currently on 20 grand a week, so that would take him up to £200,000 a week. The reports were around 180, but this is where there's a little bit of contradiction, right? Because Laurie Whitwell was the journalist who debunked those stories as well in the past, but now he's coming out in the report saying potentially up to 10 times the wages, which is why I'm a little bit conflicted on the stories. But anyway, he went on to say, but the club were reluctant to meet that outlay even when he was playing regularly, believing he would only be ready to make a move to such a pay grade after another year or two of development. So United held firm and said, no, we don't think you're worth £200,000 a week just yet. Which I think is the right approach, because we want to wait and see how you develop over the next 1 or 2 years. Let's not forget, he's still only 20 years old and hasn't exactly, yes, he had a really good first season when he broke into the first team. Last season, very mixed, in my opinion. It was a hit and miss season for Kobbie Mainoo. So to then be demanding £200,000 a week, which is more than Amad Diallo got as well for his new contract, if you remember. I don't see it, so I can understand the club's point of view from that perspective. And then they went on to say, right now, the prospect of any new deal looks remote. Those familiar with the situation say Mainoo currently has no intention of renewing, giving his playing opportunities under Amorim. His willingness to leave was initially thought to be a bargaining position by many at the club, but it has become a possibility, if not this summer, then in a future window. And United will have no choice to sell Kobbie Mainoo if he refuses a contract, or if he sticks with his guns and is demanding like ridiculous wages. And let's just bear in mind, this is not Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo does not negotiate his contract. This is his agent. So if you've got any anger or anything regarding that story, it needs to be directed at Kobbie Mainoo's agency, because it's not him doing this. He's not like he's the one negotiating his own deals. He pays an agency and they're the ones doing this. And I think they're the ones driving some of these stories as well. So effectively what Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic were saying there is that, at the time when he was playing every week and sometimes in front of Casemiro, they've looked at it and said, well, Casemiro's on 325 grand a week. We want a pay rise because we're playing ahead of him, which you could understand from an agency perspective. You would do that for your client. United looked at it and said, actually, no, we're not prepared to pay anywhere near those sort of salaries for a young player that hasn't yet proved himself. Maybe in a couple of years' time, once you've developed and you're in the first team and you're regularly playing, yes, maybe you could warrant, a significant pay rise up to those sort of levels, but you've got to prove yourself first. And then the club were looking at it to say, well, Mainoo was threatening to leave, or don't say threaten, or maybe his agencies, but using it as a bargaining position. But now actually this might become a possibility as well, which is, it is what it is. But if he's not going to renew his contract, we're going to have to sell him. Like, you can't, he's got 2 years and a +1 option on his contract, but if he's not going to sign a new deal, we're going to have to sell him anyway. So if that's the position, then it is what it is regarding that. You can't keep an unhappy player that doesn't want to sign a new contract. You're going to have to sell him. But I also don't think we should be giving him anywhere near, like, he shouldn't be earning more than Amad Diallo, in my opinion, because Amad Diallo was, up until his injury, arguably our best player last season, more than Mainoo, and I don't think he deserves more than Amad Diallo got on his contract renewal. So I don't think he warrants that. I do think he deserves a pay rise, though. He's on 20 grand a week. So, when you are looking at other players around the squad and stuff that are probably on more than that, I do get where they're coming from, but nowhere near like that level of money. Mike Keegan, though, from the Daily Mail, said that Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid are keeping a close eye on Kobbie Mainoo's situation, with sources indicating that both clubs are interested in a potential season-long loan. In the report on The Athletic, they did mention maybe Germany as well. Bayern Munich might be looking at him. They did mention Bayern Leverkusen with Erik ten Hag. We know he likes signing former players, but Leverkusen won't be able to afford Kobbie Mainoo. So there might be, but apart from that, there's no real links with actual clubs coming in for Mainoo, which is another weird situation as well. Fabrizio Romano said, I think we can have the situation definitely more clear in or out in the next 24 to 48 hours. There will be conversations. Man United will also discuss with Kobbie Mainoo to understand the situation, because obviously Kobbie was disappointed after the last game as well. So, maybe they're going to have a conversation with his agency, showdown talks, whatever, regarding his situation, to either clarify his position within the squad, or, maybe to negotiate an exit if he's not going to sign a new contract, or maybe they look at a contract renewal. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. So, but there's only, a few days left in the transfer window now, and I just got a feel it's too late to do these sort of deals personally, but I would never say never in the transfer market, especially with United as well, doing last minute deals. Going back to the Athletic report, though, they were saying that when Chelsea inquired about his availability during the January window, Stamford Bridge officials were quoted a £70 million asking fee. There is a belief United would now accept around £45 million. That's going to spark a debate around prices and everything like that. And to be fair, I don't know what Kobbie Mainoo's value would be. We all have different opinions and different thoughts on that because it depends on whether you rate the player or don't rate the player. And the fact is, he's not playing. Didn't have the best season last season either as well. So, we'll have to wait and see. Talking about prices and stuff is getting far too ahead of ourselves because we don't actually know whether he's going to go or be sold or anything yet. So, Graham Bailey, though, however, said that Manchester United are ready to let Kobbie Mainoo leave the club by Monday. Interest is strong in the England international. United looking for sale rather than loan. Mainoo's departure will have a significant impact on the squad. Of course, it will, because we're going to need to bring in a midfielder anyway, in my opinion. Let alone selling Kobbie Mainoo. Because then, it just leaves us massively light in an area that we need to strengthen anyway. So that's why it's a bit weird, the whole situation. Sky Sports were saying that Manchester United anticipate receiving offers for Kobbie Mainoo as interest continues to grow both domestically and across Europe. While Mainoo is open to a potential move, he has not formally communicated this to the club. United remain pleased with him and are not actively seeking his departure at any. And at this stage, a loan move appears highly unlikely. So give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Genuinely, what do you think about the Kobbie Mainoo situation? The more I'm thinking about it, the more it feels like a couple of scenarios. I think that maybe it is a dispute around his contract, and if he's not signing a new contract, then the club are in a position, well, if you don't want to sign a new deal, then we're going to have to sell you. And would they look at it and say, well, can we sell him now to bring the money in to maybe go back in and make another late bid for Carlos Baleba or another midfielder and Adam Wharton? Someone of this nature to actually then go for and bring in a midfielder that one can potentially compete with, Bruno and Casemiro. Who knows? Is it agent talk to try and, get his client's name out in the media as a way to force United back to the table, or to give him the contract offer that they're wanting for their client as well? There could be a little bit of that. I do think there's a bit of media mischief mixed in amongst that as well, playing on our emotions as fans, because everyone knows the midfield is the big kind of contentious point at the moment that we're all talking about. Bruno Fernandes is one of the main characters that we're talking about, and Bruno is keeping Mainoo out of the team, so I do think there may be a bit of media mischief involved in that as well. But overall, the reality is, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, because there's only a few days left on the transfer window, and if you did sell Mainoo, I just hope it's for the right reasons. I hope it is for the right reasons, because, like no one's got the divine right to stay at United. No player's bigger than the club, regardless of whether they come for the youth team or not. I just hope they're selling him because they don't think that he's a good fit for United, not because they don't think that he's a good fit for Amorim's system, because who knows how long Amorim's going to last, because of all the attention, all the noise. He has to start winning games. Otherwise, his position's going to become very, very much under scrutiny, if it's not already. And then if you sell a player like Kobbie Mainoo to play a system that you might not then follow through with a manager, I think would be massively naive. So if the club do make the decision to sell him, I hope it's a club decision, not a Ruben Amorim decision, because I think that's a big decision to make with somebody as young and raw and talented as Kobbie Mainoo. And I hope they're doing it for the right reasons if they are looking to sell him. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now let's stick with the midfield. So mentioned a player there potentially, that we're been linked with, interested is Carlos Baleba. In the Athletic report, they were saying that beyond the interest of Carlos Baleba, the search for a midfielder has focused more on identifying an alternative to Bruno Fernandes, someone who would play alongside Casemiro or Manuel Ugarte. This, according to Amorim's latest statement, would impact Mainoo. So the Athletic was saying that obviously we wanted to bring in Carlos Baleba as, in my mind, a replacement for Casemiro and someone to compete with Ugarte as the sixth, the more defensive of the midfielders. But the Athletic was saying that actually we're maybe now more focused on an alternative to Bruno Fernandes. So that could be someone like Angelo Stiller. We were linked with him last week, although that kind of got downplayed a little bit as well. But someone like Angelo Stiller, Ederson is another name we've been linked with. Adam Wharton we're heavily linked with as well. But again, he's going to cost Carlos Baleba money, if not more, this late in the transfer window to get from Crystal Palace. So that's really interesting. That could be maybe one of the reasons why Kobbie Mainoo's looked at it and said, well, hold on, if I'm not going to get in front of Bruno, but then you're looking to buy a replacement for Bruno, then I become third choice midfielder for that position. If Amrim's looking at it to say, well, it's either Bruno or Mainoo that plays, or Ugarte and Casemiro, and he sees those players as like competing for the the more attacking midfield position and the more defensive midfield position, then obviously Kobbie would have to make a choice based on that as well. But that would be interesting. Give us some thoughts and feelings in the comments, like for the midfield options. Obviously, we know Carlos Baleba's one, but if we're looking more for somebody that's like an attacking midfielder, that would be a bit weird. That would be a bit strange, but, wouldn't rule it out. Wouldn't rule it out. Edison springs to mind for that sort of position, and maybe Edison would be someone we could bring in anyway, because I think he could do like a little bit of hybrid of both, maybe play a little bit more defensive and take Casemiro out of the team and then potentially take over from Bruno. Who knows? But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, a couple of days left, so we'll see if see what happens regarding. I could see a situation actually where Mainoo, so if we sold Mainoo, I could see us then going back in for Baleba, because that would give us loads more wiggle room from a PSR perspective, because obviously he's homegrown profit, which would be massive, and you could spread the costs out. And if we had 50 odd million pounds anyway to go in for Baleba, and you had 45 million, even if you sold him at that cheap, for that takes you up to the 100 million pound mark. And there was a report before, wasn't there, that Brighton would want a player in exchange for, or potentially for Carlos Baleba. Could it be Mainoo? So some of you were saying that in the comments as well. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Now, keeping with Bruno, Manchester United could reignite their pursuit of Brighton's Carlos Baleba with a minimum £100 million price tag if Bruno Fernandes departs. Fernandes, who previously turned down a £100 million offer from Al Hilal, might still attract interest from the Saudi club. So that was reported at the end of yesterday's video from Jamie Jackson, suggesting that if Bruno goes, because there's still interest from the Saudi Pro League, their transfer window closes after ours as well. But I wouldn't. United are not going to sell if we can't buy a replacement, so it would need to be done before Monday's deadline, I believe. Suggesting that if we got 100 million for Fernandes, then maybe we would go back in for Carlos Baleba. Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail said that Bruno Fernandes is unlikely to leave Manchester United this summer, but a massive take-it-or-leave-it offer from Al Ittihad before the Saudi transfer window closes on September the 10th, surpassing Al Hilal's quadrupling salary proposal, could change things. So again, Chris Wheeler is suggesting that actually, he's unlikely to leave, but if you get like this sort of generational offer, could that change Bruno Fernandes' mind? But I don't think the club would sell if we've got no opportunity to buy a replacement. That's just stupidity. Like, if you did it before Monday's deadline, then yeah, maybe, and then you've got time to potentially go back in for Carlos Baleba, who we've done a lot of groundwork on. Let's not forget, we've agreed personal terms and everything like that. Player wants to come to us. It's just we couldn't negotiate a price with Brighton. Plausible, but I think these sort of deals it's just too late. It leaves us with very little time to maneuver this late in the transfer window, personally. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Fabrizio Romano on Bruno Fernandes said that there's nothing really advanced into it. The appreciation for Bruno Fernandes from Saudi is from 2 years ago. Bruno is happy at Manchester United. Then if you ask me, in the future, has Bruno any chance to join Saudi Pro League? I think yes, because they've always been there, and they'll return to the table. So Fabrizio Romano saying there's nothing advanced in the links with Bruno going to Saudi. The interest has been there for a couple of years. Excuse me. Bruno is happy at United, but potentially they'll come back in the future. And there is, the more likely scenario is that Bruno stays and then he goes in 2026 to Saudi. That's what I can see happening, because then that gives us time to obviously plan for the future and scout players and go for a replacement this season. At the moment, there is nothing close or imminent to happen for Bruno to join Al Ittihad. At the moment, Man United keep thinking that at the end, Bruno will complete this season at the club, and then we'll see in 2026. So again, that was from Fabrizio Romano. So it's more likely in the future, Bruno Fernandes, and I know you'll have thoughts and feelings on that in the comments, and I'm sure you're going to share them. But yeah, get involved in the comments below on that. Now, the more likely player we could bring in before the end of the transfer window is Senne Lammens, so the latest there. So Chris Wheeler has said that Galatasaray have outbid Manchester United for Lammens, but the 23-year-old prefers a move to Old Trafford. United's other ongoing deals may affect their ability to sign him before the transfer deadline. So if you remember, there were a few stories coming from Belgian teams that I brought to you in yesterday's video, suggesting that Galatasaray were interested in Senne Lammens and they've also made a bid. Well, according to Chris Wheeler, Galatasaray have outbid Manchester United, so they've obviously offered more money to Royal Antwerp than we were, and that might affect our ability because we might even have to match that bid. But then we need to maybe rely on more exits and sales in order to do that. Although the player himself, according to Romano, has already agreed personal terms with us and wants to come to United. And that's been Ineos's approach all summer. Get the players buy-in, get them to want to join us, so they will reject offers from other teams, even if they outbid us. Look at Benjamin Sesko as a prime example. Newcastle outbid us, but we got the buy-in from the player. He wanted to come to us and us only, and then that meant that Newcastle couldn't. It doesn't matter how much they bid because the player wanted to come to us. So I can see a situation like that with Senne Lammens, hopefully anyway. And then Sky Sports have said that Manchester United remain in talks with Antwerp for Senne Lammens, worth £17.3 million. However, United will not get involved in a bidding war amid reports that Galatasaray have made a higher offer. It is thought Lammens wants to come to Old Trafford, but United are looking at other keepers. There is still a chance there will not be an arrival in the keeper department in this window, so that's interesting. So we need to keep an eye on that and wait and see how that plays out. Conversations are continuing for the deal of Senne Lammens. Antwerp want €25 million. Man United started negotiations at 17 plus €3 million. Antwerp want at least 20 million guaranteed to arrive on a package deal of 25 million euros. Negotiations are ongoing, so we've offered 17 plus 3. Antwerp want 25. Or at least 20 million guaranteed, so it's going to be 20 million plus a couple of million in add-ons by the sounds of things they're going off of what Fabrizio Romano had to say. Manchester United are highly confident in securing Senne Lammens' transfer within the next 48 hours. That came from Christian Michel, who's a good source as well. So again, we'll need to wait and see how that one plays out. Antwerp want at least 20 million euros guaranteed. I've brought you that one already. And then Fabrizio Romano said that sources playing down reports on Andre Onana joining West Ham on loan from Manchester United. No talks. Senne Lammens' potential arrival at Manchester United still in negotiations doesn't mean Onana leaves this summer. So again, story yesterday I brought you regarding Andre Onana and potentially a loan deal, I think it was, to West Ham. According to Romano, no reports. And the fact that we are potentially bringing in Senne Lammens doesn't mean that Onana is going to leave this summer, although there are a few days left. We'll have to, again, wait and see how that one plays out. And then let's go for the rest of the exit news. There's not really much happening on exits. So Manchester United are in negotiations with Real Betis over the sale of Antony, and Man United are hopeful that a permanent transfer can be agreed. The chances of a deal being concluded are helped by the fact Antony is not in the top bracket of earners at United, so Betis are likely to be able to afford to pay the majority, if not all of his wages, if they sign him. That came from Paul Hurst in the Times, suggesting that Real Betis might not have an issue paying Antony's wages, but then they're saying that they're skint, they can't afford his wages and they can't afford a transfer fee, and are literally here with their begging bowl out trying to get us to do like a bullshit loan where we pay half of his wages and stuff, which is just just ridiculous in my opinion. But it makes me angry, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. So I'm going to move on with the Antony news. Real Betis are in talks with Manchester United over a permanent deal for Antony. United have made it clear in negotiations that they did not want to do another straight loan for the player. And I hope we can stand by our guns with this and get a permanent exit for Antony. But again, we'll have to wait and see. And then a good Spanish source has said that Real Betis still have no agreement with Manchester United for Antony, described as difficult deal. The parties have explored different formulas beyond a simple loan. Tell me what you think about that in the comments. On Rasmus Højlund, the Times were saying that there is confidence on all sides that Rasmus Højlund's move to Napoli will go through before the transfer window closes at 7 p.m. on Monday. The structure of the deal has not been agreed yet. It could either be a loan or a permanent move, but Napoli's latest offer consisted of £4.3 million loan fee plus a permanent transfer of £34.6 million if the Serie A title holders qualify for next season's Champions League. There's been a few mixed reports saying that United want to include an obligation to buy. Napoli want to do a option to buy that triggers into an obligation after certain criteria. So I think they're just ironing out those sort of structures regarding Rasmus Højlund and his move. And Jadon Sancho has definitely rejected Roma. Roma are now focusing on Chelsea's Tariq George. That came from Damarcio. So, yeah, God knows what's going on with Jadon Sancho. I genuinely don't have an idea of what's going to happen with Jadon Sancho because Roma seem to be the club that were the most interested. They've agreed a fee with us. He just doesn't want to go there. So God knows what's going to happen with Jadon Sancho. We'll have to obviously find out in the next few days. I can see loans to Turkey after the transfer window closes because, you know, that's the way it could be. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.